Thanks for joining us on ntTV Nightly News. I'm Edison Mesa.
And I'm Michaela Goose. Well, it's that time of the year, pumpkins, tricks, and treats, and of course, haunted houses. The city of Denton is known for being a haunted location with more than its share of spooky history. ntTV's Kayla Holt has more about the mysterious haunts. Kayla?
If you're looking for something to do this Halloween, Moxley Manor might be the perfect thing for you. A haunted house that utilizes makeup, wigs, and all things spooky, so you can be as spooked as possible. People are able to walk through the house while characters of all sorts jump out and do their best to scare everyone they come across. Some of these characters are even played by people who have wanted to play a scary character or an insane asylum escapee since they could remember.
A friend of mine, he worked here and he mentioned that he worked at a haunted house, and that's something I always wanted to try. Came up here once and I just never stopped showing up.
Moxley Manor is open until October 31st. For more information on admission, be sure to visit the website below. That's all I have for you tonight. Have a safe and happy Halloween. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Kayla. Well, that looks like a lot of fun and hopefully very spooky. The weather for Halloween is also looking great.
That's right, Michaela. The weather has been great these past couple of days. No complaints here, but let's go over to our weather anchor, Jordan Miller, to take a first look at the weather.
Thanks, Edison. I know you guys are really looking forward to getting dressed up on Saturday, and I actually have great news as far as the weather on Halloween. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at our current weather conditions for Denton. Right now, we've got really beautiful temperatures outside, 61 degrees, feeling just a little bit cooler at 59 with that 16-mile-per-hour breeze outside and sunny skies. Now, as we head into tonight, we are going to get a little bit colder, and Denton is going to be under a freeze watch this evening into the early morning. We're going down into even the 30s with 35 as our low, 47 possibly being the temperatures outside, and a 15-mile-per-hour breeze, but clear skies, no snow. Moving into tomorrow, our temperatures are going to jump back up into the 60s with a high of 64, low of 41, and nice 4-mile-per-hour wind speed with cloudy skies. Now, I know it's still a couple days away, but let's go ahead and look at our Halloween forecast. Now, if you guys are trying to do any COVID-safe Halloween activities, outside is going to be the place to be because we've got 70 degrees outside. As we get into the evening, it's going to drop down into the 40s, but still pretty nice with an 8-mile-per-hour wind speed and partly cloudy skies. Now, if you want to check in with us later to see what the rest of the week is going to look like, I'll have that 7-day forecast. For now, back to you.
Thanks, Jordan. We'll check back with you later in the newscast. The colder fall weather and the oncoming holidays continue to worry health officials, especially due to the surge in COVID cases. Karen Kaifa has more.
With record-breaking daily numbers of U.S. COVID cases, experts forecast more trouble ahead.
We know we're now going to be pushing cases well north of 100,000 cases a day very soon.
The U.S. is now averaging more than 74,000 new coronavirus cases per day, with numbers rising in more than 40 states.
I'm quite concerned as we see this explosive increase in cases because it's going to be followed by more hospitalizations as it already has, and then inevitably more deaths.
States in the Midwest are experiencing that rise in hospitalizations. Doctors there say it's not time to look back on why numbers have climbed, but look ahead to how to curb them.
We can spend a lot of time lamenting what may have caused that, whether it's change in weather, back to school, high school and college sports, whether it's pandemic fatigue. But whatever it is, we just need to continue to deal with it.
In New York City, which felt the worst of the nation's first wave this spring, the focus is on keeping a second at bay.
We have a threat from everywhere around us, and a growing threat. So we've put some restrictions in place in some areas that need it.
The Commerce Department says U.S. economic growth shattered records from July through September, rebounding from spring depths to grow at an annual rate of 33.1%. But economists warn recovery will stall if the virus isn't tamed. In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
The story is the same for those of us in North Texas and Denton County. Worries about the increasing COVID numbers. Today, county officials reported 126 new active cases, while Dallas County is reporting over 620 new cases.
While the concern over COVID-19 safety is real, so is the determination of Texan voters. Early voting turnout continues to break records. Denton County is one of the most active counties in the state. More than 60% of registered voters have already cast their ballots. Collin County is also hitting that 60% mark in voter turnout. Now, early voting ends tomorrow, and if you intend to vote on Election Day, mark your calendar. Tuesday, November 3rd, with polls opening at 7 a.m. and closing at 7 p.m. This Monday, the Texas Army National Guard announced they could be deployed to 5 major cities ahead of the November 3rd election next week. Up to 1,000 troops could be deployed to Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, and San Antonio. Brandon Jones, a spokesperson for the Guard, said the move would be unrelated to the election. He said it was to continue the efforts of peacekeeping that started this summer. Law enforcement across the state have reported they are preparing for demonstrations following election night. Governor Greg Abbott previously deployed the National Guard after demonstrations sprouted across Texas following the death of George Floyd. Now, Texas isn't the only state upping security measures in anticipation of Election Day.
That's right, and Michigan authorities have moved to ban firearms at polls, and police in New York City are planning to boost their presence around polling sites. We talked to private investigator and former police chief Catherine Smitoris about why authorities are so worried about Election Day.
What the big concern is for after the polls. After the election has taken place and an announcement has been made, there are concerns that will be an uptick in violence, excessive looting, and things like that happening. And those are the types of things that I know big cities in Texas are getting prepared for just in case it happens.
Most states in the U.S. do not allow police at polls unless they're specifically requested. However, some officials are asking police to remain nearby just in case. There is a concern among law enforcement that an effort to protect voters may put them in the position of policing the polls, a practice that is against the law in most states. Big cities in Texas are training for several Election Day scenarios, and the National Guard is on standby as law enforcement prepares for possible unrest.
When we come back, an update on millions of Americans without power.
And one airline has unusual ways to bring you back to flying the friendly skies.
And for anyone looking for a costume safely this Halloween, we have more information for you on that coming up.
anyone looking forward to their local Halloween parties this Saturday, or for us with kids excited to go house to house for their favorite treats, here are some tips on how to keep your Halloween spooky, sweet, and safe. Stay home with some Halloween films, crave a pumpkin, read a horror story, or play a scary game. Wear a mask, avoid contact with trick-or-treaters, wash your hands before touching treats, try giving treats outdoors, or set up a station of bag treats. Wear gloves when handing out candy, and don't wear a costume mask over your face mask because it makes breathing difficult. Keeping people safe in this holiday season is a priority, and one company is keeping that in mind.
Nathan Mayer seems to have drawn the spooky straw and is out at Party City here in Denton. Nathan, what's on their Halloween agenda?
Michaela, Edison, we all know that this holiday is going to be looking a little bit different this year, but it can still be fun. That's right, Halloween's coming up this weekend, and if you're still looking for costumes, some spooky decor, or even candy, Party City has guests shopping safely. That's right, Party City says a few ways you can still celebrate Halloween this year is by having devilish decor, dropping goodie bags on the doorsteps of friends and family, decorating your car for trunk or treat, or by having drive-by and festive costume parades. Party City has also released the top 10 costume ideas for this year's Halloween, which include a slasher theme, election-inspired, and everyday hero costumes. But my personal favorite is the Tiger King-inspired theme. And when it comes to Halloween, there's one name that everyone knows, not only because of what she does, but because of who she is. And we know her as Rose.
Falls on a Saturday this year, and usually that means there'd be people all over the place. But COVID has other plans for us, and it's going to be looking a little different this year.
It's the beginning of the holiday season, technically, so that's what I love about Halloween.
Brian's love for Halloween is matched by the love he has for Denton's most adored costume shop, Rose's Costumes.
With the community theater, I've definitely used Rose costumes pretty much for every show.
Brian says that the Denton Community Theater, or DCT, uses roses as their first choice and breaks down the financial process for the theater.
Well, DCT has like an open tab up there, so for each specific show you're allotted a certain stipend for like costumes, and the costumes, you know, they have a budget of say $1,500 for a specific musical or something like that. And they open a tab at Rose Costumes, and then the theater just closes it out once the costumes are used and returned.
With all the respect Brian has for the shop, his respect comes from his feelings about the costumes that Roses provides.
Honestly, you can tell that they're handmade. Even wearing it, they're not uncomfortable. Like, sometimes you have to wear a costume that's really hot, and you don't, you're going to be sweating bullets the whole time, but they make them comfortable to fit. It's just, you can tell. It's like your grandmother made the costume.
And Grandma often knows best in life. But according to Brian, who's lived in Denton since 2004, considers owner Judy Smith one of Denton's most important people.
Oh, they've been around here since I can remember, and Judy, who's the owner and founder of Rose Costumes, she's just like a staple of Denton.
Due to Rose's remaining closed to the public, owner Judy Smith wanted to maintain social distance during the pandemic and was unable to interview. However, Brian is still optimistic on how business is going.
I know, especially this time of year, it's really hard for them. But knowing what they do and how they do their fittings and stuff like that, they're probably still managing really well.
With all the social distancing rules in place across the city, Brian had an interesting take on how to get out and have some fun.
Well, we're all wearing masks anyways. Every day's Halloween in Denton.
With COVID keeping so many things closed down, including Roses, let's just hope that things get back to normal soon so we can start enjoying the holidays again. For ntTV, I'm Nathan Mayer.
Thanks, Nathan. Now, these cooler temperatures are allowing me to bring my winter wardrobe out, which I don't know about you, Michaela, but it is my favorite style.
Are you kidding? I've been waiting all year to get my puffy jackets out. Let's see if this is going to continue in our full weather with Jordan Miller. Jordan?
Thanks, guys. Absolutely, a winter wardrobe certainly is warranted as we've been getting a lot of cooler temperatures lately. Let's go ahead and look at our temperatures across North Texas. And as you can see here, we're getting what is, to me, perfect weather. We've got high 50s to low 60s temperatures. But like I said, we are going to be getting a freeze watch this morning from around 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. So make sure you turn off your automatic sprinklers because we don't want to be slipping on ice as we head into work tomorrow. Now let's go ahead and zoom out and look at our temperatures across the state of Texas. And as you can see, we're getting a hit again with those high 50s and low 60s. A little bit colder up in Amarillo with 46 as they join us with that freeze watch, but really great overall. Let's go ahead and head into our 7-day forecast for the week. Now, like I said, tomorrow after that freeze warning is over, we're getting really nice temperatures with a high of 64, low of 41. And then as we head into Halloween, we're getting a high of 70, low of 44, and partly cloudy skies. So really great temperatures there. For the rest of the weekend, we're getting highs in the 60s and lows, a little bit colder, but as we go into Election Day, if you're planning on standing in the polls, you'll be surprised to see that we've got a high of 66, low of 47, and sunny skies. For the rest of the week, you can expect highs in the 70s and lows in the 50s. Now, like I said earlier, if you're looking to do some COVID-safe outdoor activities, maybe do some pumpkin carving or a socially distanced costume competition with the rest of your neighbors, because it's going to shape up to be a really great day. That's all I have for weather. Back to you.
Thanks, Jordan. Traveling on Bonnie Bay Street just got a whole lot busier.
And a Denton airport has come up with new strategies to keep flying. Stay with us. Election Day is November 3rd. Be sure to get out and vote. Then, after the polls close, tune in to ntTV election coverage with up-to-minute state and national results. Streaming live and on air November 3rd from 7 to 9.
With the country still on edge, some are planning their next vacation before the end of the year, but that is not to say that they don't have their own doubts. Mandy Guider has more on the travel destinations for this winter's vacations.
67% of U.S. adults who are planning a vacation before the end of 2020 aren't certain they'll be able to take their vacations, according to a recent survey from AAA. Because of that uncertainty, some are waiting until the last minute before finalizing travel plans. The survey shows 1 in 5 who are planning a trip haven't yet booked it. They plan to do so within a week of traveling. Most trips, 80%, will be road trips, and more Americans this year are heading to destinations known for outdoor recreation, like hiking and exploring state and national parks, places that allow for socially distanced fun. The top road trip destinations based on AAA searches since the summer include Denver, Colorado, Las Vegas, Nevada, Los Angeles, California, San Diego, and Seattle, Washington, rounding out the top 5. Lower prices at the gas pumps may be adding to road trip fever this fall. The average U.S. gas price this month about 50 cents cheaper than this time last year. Fall prices haven't been this low since 2016. For Consumer Watch, I'm Mandy Gaither.
With travelers prepping for vacations, one airline is trying to make flights safer. United Airlines is planning on taking you off the road and putting you in a plane. The pilot program, as they're calling it, is having its 4-week trial run starting on November 16th. The program will essentially guarantee a COVID-free flight by testing everyone who is on board, creating a safer way to travel. Passengers are required to arrive 3 hours before their flight so that they can get their rapid test back in time. For now, the airline will only test flights going from Newark's airport to London's Heathrow.
Now, no matter how high they fly, the aviation industry can't escape the effects of the pandemic. Around the U.S., the countries are facing tough time, but here in Denton, there is still hope for future pilots. ntTV Laura Nunez has more on how the U.S. Aviation Academy in Denton.
Nearly 32,000 United and American Airlines employees were furloughed after the airlines could no longer afford to keep paying employees. But in Denton, there's an aviation school that is teaching students from all over the world the skills they will need to become pilots.
Well, I think COVID has definitely affected our nation significantly. Obviously, we know that the airlines took a big hit to that, so they definitely have been impacted, and that's something that it kind of flows back to us. So you know, when the airlines kind of pause hiring and they have to shrink a little bit, everyone in aviation sort of feels it.
Katie Shields is a new pilot who has felt the effects of COVID-19 firsthand.
I was working here at US Aviation to get all of my required flight hours to become an airline pilot, and I made it to the airlines, and unfortunately, because my seniority was so low, I ended up getting furloughed, but I'm very thankful that US Aviation took me back to be a ground school instructor and a flight instructor again.
Shields says, while it might be hard to find a job now, she thinks it's actually a good time to go to flight school because eventually the airline industry will come back and they will have a need for more pilots.
Flight schools are slowing down, which is only going to widen the gap even more. So I think that we're definitely going to need more pilots in the next couple of years. So if someone were to start their flight training right now, they would be ready for the airlines in about 3 years from now, right when the industry bounces back.
Reporting for ntTV News, I'm Laura Nunez.
Now, as the population of Denton continues to grow, traffic along the roadways also increases. To subside these issues, the city has constructed plans for the community. Christine Guevara has more.
Thanks, Michaela. If you're familiar with the roads in Denton, then you most likely have heard of Bonnie Brae Street. This infamous road is currently facing improvements under a 7-phase project. And out of the 7 phases, Phase 1 and Phase 2 are actively under construction in order to accommodate mobility needs.
Construction of the Bonnie Brae Phase 1 project began in July of 2017 and is expected to be completed by November of 2020. It includes widening Bonnie Brae from Roselawn Drive to Vintage Boulevard.
And so we're about 90% complete on construction. We're currently working on the intersection of Roselawn and Bonnie Brae. We're working on paving the north side of that intersection.
The Phase 2 project began in January of 2020 and is located at the intersection of Bonnie Brae Street and Vintage Boulevard. It will consist of expanding Vintage Boulevard from 2 lanes to a 4-lane undivided roadway from I-35 West to US 377. Other additions to the project include a 10-foot sidewalk along the north side of Bonnie Brae and a 5-foot sidewalk along the south.
Yeah, so we have a drainage system that has gone in. We also have, as you said, the street widening. We have street lighting that's going in.
Project manager Seth Garcia says there will be minimal impacts to traffic due to the majority of the project's paving taking place outside of the existing pavement. The primary goals of this project is to increase connectivity between I-35 and US 377, and also to provide an access way along Bonnie Brae through the city.
Phase 1 of the project is expected to have traffic on the roadway within the next 6 weeks, and Phase 2 is scheduled for completion by April of 2021. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Christine. Well, this wasn't the best week for UNT football.
That's what I heard, Michaela. I was actually looking forward for the game on Saturday, but let's go over to our sports anchor, Sarah Baskin, for an update. Sarah?
Thanks, guys. Unfortunately, UNT's game for this weekend has been sidelined. I'll explain that and more after the break.
My share.
UNT's football game against UTEP that was scheduled for this Saturday was postponed earlier this week. Now, even though no COVID cases were confirmed in UTEP's locker room, El Paso has issued a stay-at-home order in the wake of record COVID hospitalizations. UNT President Neil Sumatra said on Tuesday, "We're disappointed to have our first postponement of a Conference USA game, but the health and safety of our student athletes, staff, and coaches is our #1 priority. We send our best wishes to the entire El Paso community as they face the challenge of dealing with the latest outbreak." Conference USA pushed back the football championship by 2 weeks to accommodate for canceled in-conference games, so hopefully we'll be able to see these two teams face off by the end of the season. And once football season is over, UNT basketball will be right around the corner. CUSA released their basketball schedules yesterday, and the UNT men's team will only face in-conference opponents in an 18-game schedule, while the women's team has 6 preseason non-conference games. Schools will play 2 games per visit at 4 select CUSA schools and host 4 teams for 2-game series. Similar to football, CUSA has left a week in between the regular season and the championships to accommodate for any canceled games. Now, the Mean Green were conference champions last season, so I can't wait for the season to start. UNT hosts their first game against UAB on New Year's Eve. And finally, UNT golfer Lauren Cox was awarded Conference USA Golfer of the Week for the 2nd time this year, following a strong second-round showing at the Cowgirl Classic at Oklahoma State last week. Lauren's 67 was the best round of the tournament, and she also was the only player to break 70 throughout all 3 rounds for a 10th overall finish among a field of several nationally ranked teams and players. Lauren was also CUSA Golfer of the Week after the team's first tournament in early October. And that's all I have for sports. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Sarah, and thank you for watching ntTV Nightly News.
And join us for our special election night coverage beginning at 7 p.m. Tuesday, November 3rd here on North Texas Television.